Dr. Schindler, good morning. Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast again.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Unfortunately, I missed you back in October. I came out to your neck of the woods and I got to go to the modern Stone Age kitchen, but it looks like we switched places then because you found your way over to Texas when I found my way over to Maryland.
I know it killed me that you were here and I wasn't able to see you.
Well, I tell you what, I definitely had a great experience over there too. Just everything from the friendliness of the staff. I ordered a liverwurst sandwich, which was really good. I think I ordered some chips, which I'm assuming you all probably made in house. And also, I got to say, just like the leadership that I experienced too, just the way Christina was interacting with the staff, and I could just tell that they were in good hands, and that made me made me feel really good to be there.
Thank you. It means a lot for you to say that. And I have to tell you, we have 25 people working now, and we have an amazing team. And Christina and I just sat down with all of them over the past few weeks. We did reviews and we do regular reviews with them. And the final question we asked every single one of them is, what do you like most about working here? And every single one of them, all 25, the answer was the people meaning the team that, they're teammates really. And also the people coming in. So it's great to hear your customer experience was the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did go a little bit crazy getting stuff out of the fridge to take with me for the rest of my travels. Like I got some of the crackers, those cricket bombs, those protein balls that you had there. Those were really good. And it was kind of funny. Like a lot of people were looking at me when I'm in the airport at Washington Dulles, and I just got like one of the trays of crackers, and I'm just snacking on them, waiting for my flight. So I did a little promotional stuff for you
Thank
during my
you.
travels as well. So
We can always use as much of that as we can get for sure.
yeah, and I also brought this with me. I was hoping I can get you to sign this, but of course, your book "Eat Like a Human" is out now, and a lot of great information in this, and so I definitely would recommend that our listeners go and check that out. It's just so how's that been so far? Just kind of being a published author now, because I know that this was in the works for quite some time.
It was in the works for a very, very long time. It was incredibly satisfying and rewarding to finally have it out. But it's like anything else. It was such a passion project, so very important that you got to feel that satisfaction for a brief moment, and then it's like, well, what's the next project? What's the next book? It's been wonderful because books. I don't. I'm not a big collector of things. I don't. I don't like collect coins, and I don't collect these stamps and trading cards and that sort of thing like people did when they were younger. But I do love books signed by authors. Like that's the one thing because it's so incredibly meaningful. So I promise you I'll get that book signed for you. But to me, to be on the other side of that and to be able to sign books for people is probably just one of the most rewarding things I've experienced in a very long time. And I absolutely love that.
Well, I definitely think that it's our duty as archaeologists too. Like I feel, in my opinion, and maybe this might rub some of our colleagues the wrong way, but I feel like the best archaeologists among us are the ones that are able to take what they learn and can transfer that knowledge and that information in a way that just betters mankind as a whole. And I definitely feel like that's what you've done with this book, not only just with the information that you share, but your own story as well, because you're someone that like walks the walk, but also, or excuse me, I screwed up that saying, talks the talk, but also walks the walk. You share this information, but you've been around the world. You and I talked last time about, how you and your family spent some time with the Samburu warriors in East Africa. You've also gone to, Southeast Asia, and, you're literally eating bugs down there and everything. And then I'm learning from some of like these amazing chefs in places like Italy and so on and so forth. So what do you kind of see yourself on the horizon? Because I'm sure that your adventures and you're continuously learning too. Because that's another thing about being an archaeologist is that we're lifelong students. So what do you kind of see for yourself on the horizon to continue to perfect your craft? I guess
That's a great question. Real quick, you just mentioned about archaeologists. I feel that same, lifelong learners. The best archaeologists are lifelong learners, and I feel one of the things that I valued during my 20 years when I was a professor was my life was revolved around this very circular, very rewarding thing. It was I got to go out and do research, whether that was archaeological research or ethnographic research or library research, whatever it was. I got to learn something new, and then I was in a position to sit there and distill it all down and put it through my brain the way I see, through my filter, through the way that I view the world. And then I got to stand in front of a group of students and share with them everything that I learned that's been filtered through my brain and hopefully impact the way that they see the world and their place in the world. And then I got to go do it again, got to do more research. And then it came back. And, as I'm evolving, my students are evolving, and it was incredibly rewarding. And one of the things that I was nervous about when I left the college so that Christina and I could start the Eastern Shore Food Lab and the Modern Stone Age Kitchen on our own was that wasn't going to be a part of my life anymore. And we've been very strategic and purposeful in making sure that it was for both of us, because she came from education as well. And we've been able to continue that. And I'm proud to say not only are we continuing to do research and continuing to teach in a very impactful way, but we just finished a 5-year strategic plan for the nonprofit for the Eastern Shore Food Lab. Literally this past week, it was a multi-month, incredibly intense process. And we're now poised to take it to the next level. So continued research and most importantly, finding ways to take what we learn and use that to impact the community. So, we're looking at expanding a lot of our class offerings. We're now running trips around the world. Actually, just yesterday, our food, culture, history, and prehistory tour of Ireland sold out. We're running that in July. We're going to be going to Kenya in February, and then hopefully adding either Oaxaca or Sardinia to the list the following year. So we've got a lot of amazing things on the horizon. And what I'm really excited about that we're working towards, and you'll really appreciate this, we're focused on connection. I think one of the most important things we can do to make an impact on health, the environment, approaches to food, approaches to everything, is to reconnect people to literally everything it means to be human, but our lens is through food and through our ancestry. And so the classes that we run now for things like butchering, we do a lot of home butchering classes. We do a lot of a lot of fermentation classes. We do some foraging classes. We do a lot of sourdough bread classes, those sorts of things, cheese making classes. We're trying to create a campus where when somebody comes to learn a butchering class, the first thing we do is go outside and make stone tools. Like literally, they want to learn how to butcher a pig in their house or a chicken in their house. The first thing we're going to do is hands-on, immersive, project-based teaching and learning, where they're experiencing what it might have been like to make stone tools for the first time, begin to bring animal-based foods into our diets, and create that foundation for what it all means, reconnect that way, and then we go upstairs and take out the boning knives and start butchering a pig. Or a vegetable fermentation class starts with foraging, and then it ends with how to make sauerkraut. Or a bread baking class, sourdough bread baking class starts with creating fire by friction and hand drills and all of this to realize the power of fire and transforming food. And then we go ahead and start making bread. So those are the kind of workshops and classes and connections we're working towards.
Outstanding. Yeah, I really appreciate the community aspect that you're incorporating to this as well, because obviously that's a critical part of the human condition. Because it's just like, for as long as humans have been on on this planet, community and what am I trying to say? Okay, a word's eluding me right now, but basically working together, that's really how we are to this point right now in our lives, because humans collectively have come together to work towards building things and putting all this stuff together. So I really appreciate that aspect as well. So just what's that been like as far as continuing to be an educator, even though you're not really doing this so much in the role as a professor anymore, but you're still traveling quite a bit. And like I said at the beginning of this conversation, you swapped places with me and you were in Texas speaking at a conference. Has that been ramping up for you quite a bit? Because it sounds like that it has.
Yeah, a couple things as far as, well, we're committed to doing at least one intense research, travel-based research trip endeavor a year. This past year we were in Sardinia, which was literally magical. And then this summer we're going to be back in Mongolia to do some work on fermented dairy and ancestral approaches to dairy. So that is continued. We're going to be in northern Scandinavia hopefully next year to do some work with the Sami. So that's continuing, and we're really excited about that. But as far as the other pieces, yeah, we're teaching. We're not teaching right now, in a college or university setting, but we are teaching in our teaching kitchen. And what I love about that, I taught high school history for 1 year, then I taught college for 20 years. When I taught high school history, I realized that, I love teaching history. History is great. Prehistory is a little bit more my thing, and high school is fine, but college is even better for the kind of teaching and the kind of things that I wanted to, because I could get to get really dialed in on a specific thing in college that I didn't necessarily have the space to be able to do in high school. And especially when you get anthropology and archaeology majors, they're coming in and I can really, hone in on something that, is really important. But I'm feeling like the next step to that is the kind of teaching we're doing here, where you have somebody coming and, they're so passionate because they want to learn how to transform milk into the most nourishing form of traditional cheese they can possibly do. And I get to sit with them for hours and just go through this. And it's been very rewarding that way. We are continuing. I mean, officially, I'm a visiting associate professor at the University College Dublin. It's more of and I have been since I left Washington College. It's more of a title, in an honor title than it is anything else. And I'm very thrilled to have that again for another year, I believe. But we are starting to really do a lot more work with Washington College and collaborate with them. So we're going to have that continued link there for sure.
Outstanding. So, needless to say, your schedule has been pretty packed lately. Like I said, you're doing all this stuff as an educator. Of course, you're running a brick and mortar business, which quick side note is just I'm always so amazed with people who run brick and mortar businesses. Not only do you have just all the work that comes to just like branding and marketing and things like that, but also it's just like, you got all the utility costs, and then probably like some property taxes, and then of course, making sure you're looking out for the staff and everything like that. So a lot goes into that. But on top of that, like I said, you're traveling, you're doing all these other like speaking engagements, and then not to mention, you're also a husband and father, so you have your obligations that you have to fulfill there. So with just all these different roles and responsibilities, is just how you've been kind of sort of managing them all so you show up effectively in all of them.
That's hard. And it's really hard. You're right. It's a constant juggle. I think the number one thing is Christine and I as a team. We both share the same message and mission and drive. And so we complement each other in that we are a great team focused on the same, sort of, and there's no end goal, but the same sort of, goals, but we have a complementary but very different skill sets. So she's fantastic with computers and spreadsheets and dealing with all of those things that I have. First of all, I have no interest in, but I have no skill set in. And the kitchen sort of thing is my playground. So we've been able to do. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this alone. In fact, I wouldn't have had, I don't think, the courage to have been able to take the steps that we've taken if I was trying to do it alone. So we feed off of one another very well that way. But the hard part is making sure that we keep time for ourselves as individually, but also ourselves as a couple, and also our own family. The nice thing is we are doing this together. So the two of us are in here every day together, and it is a family business. So our family is usually in here on a regular. Our oldest daughter, Brianna, is at college at UVA right now, but anytime she's home, she's certainly in here. So that's been a great, but still, it's not the same thing as being home and playing a card game or sitting here as a family working with all the customers. So we still have to make time to do it. So these are some of the things that we do. Number one, Christine and I do quarterly retreats, the two of us, in Annapolis, not far from here. There's a thing called Annapolis Historic Inns, and they kind of have these historic homes, and for real cheap, you can spend the night in there. So we've been going to one of those for about 3 days. And the first thing that we do, for a 3-day retreat, we have to make sure during that time we go over financials and goals and structure for the kitchen, but also for the nonprofit. But the very first day we dedicate solely to um, ourselves. Like literally, okay, we sit down and, are we taking care of ourselves? Are we taking care of our marriage? Are we taking care of our family? What do we need to do for the next several months to make sure all of those things are in place? Or if we need to ramp something up, we're working in that direction. So because we realize it's kind of that oxygen mask thing on the airplane, if we individually and we as a couple and our family isn't operating properly, then none of this works. So that's one thing we do. The other thing that we do, there's 3 things in my home that I built that I think were game changers for us. One of them was the wood-fired oven in our backyard, which really kicked off, years later, the sourdough bread company and all of that. And we've had some of our most amazing meals around that wood-fired oven. I would do it again in a heartbeat. The second thing is I built a whole bunch of cubbies in the wall so that the kids, when they were in like kindergarten and first grade, they had, all of us had our backpacks and our shoes and all this. So that was great. But the third thing is on the front of our porch, we call it the couch bed. It's a twin mattress size sort of swing like thing. And every single day we get up and the 2 of us have a cup of coffee on the couch bed, and we sit there and have a conversation, looking out, watching the sunrise, and really just have a conversation without our phones, without our computers, without anything else. And just like, with exercise and with diet and with lifestyle in general, it's those small things that you do every single day, every week, every month, every year that really add up to make a big change in your life, or make sure you're nourished. And that's one of the ways that we really nourish our relationship.
Awesome. Yeah, that's one of the things that I talk about quite a bit as I've been going about with this podcast is just, well, for one, yeah, making sure that you're looking at your physical health first and foremost, because I say that your body is the vessel with which you will do all things. And if you have it running optimally, well, then all these other areas in your life are just naturally going to be elevated as a result of that too. And of course, this is something you've been implementing, just strictly on the food side more quite a bit. So now when you're traveling, I find that travel is often very much a routine disruptor. I mean, because back home in Maryland, you have obviously you got your whole kitchen set up at home, and then also at the Modern Stone Age kitchen, and then you got some of your contacts that you may be pulling ingredients from and everything like that. But I'm sure coming to Texas though, it might have been a little bit tricky because you're away from all that. So it's just, how did you kind of go about, maybe I'll say, like, let's say restaurant selection. We'll kind of start there first with this question, because I'm going to probably go on a limb here that most restaurants out there probably aren't following the same standards as a Modern Stone Age kitchen. So what's that like for you to make sure that you're meeting your nutritional needs when you're, like I said, traveling and away from your network?
Yeah. It's a fantastic question, and I wish people asked and answered that question more than they do. And I feel like on social media, the social media influencers, especially in the diet and health space, create this image that is in many ways the core of what they are, but is more what they themselves aspire to be. But they play it off as, this is what my day is like every single day, and I never vary from it. And what that does is it sets up unrealistic expectations for people that are looking to them for guidance or looking to them for inspiration. And that unfortunate but prevalent feeling of failure when they don't meet that expectation. But what I think people need to realize more often is that the people that they're looking up to, what they're showing on social media is what they're aspiring to be as well. And the reality is, many of them will eat out. Many of them will have some ice cream on a Saturday. Many of them will do these things, but they aren't going to show it to you on social media. So let me tell you exactly what we do. And the reality of a family of 5 that are on the road quite a bit, we have to eat out sometimes. We have to. Our schedules, I would love to say that we are homeschooling our kids, we're homesteading, and we're doing all of this, and we're making all of this, and every time we go on a trip for 5 days, we spend 4 months packing up all the food, and we're eating out of the coolers in the back of the car and doing all of those things are amazing. But the reality is, it's not what we're doing. I will tell you that it is rare, unless we're eating out somewhere, that we're eating something that we haven't made entirely from scratch. But we don't even have chickens in the backyard anymore. We have a dog which provides no food whatsoever. Well, in certain parts of the world they do, but here they don't provide any food whatsoever. And we are bringing in raw materials. We're making everything from scratch. But we are on the road. My son is intensely playing soccer, and we're, a lot of times that means we're gone for 3 days for a soccer tournament and somewhere in Virginia, and we have to eat out. So the number one thing I think people really need to understand is this is going to seem weird, but this is the way I frame it in my head, is to realize, just like with our hunter-gatherer ancestors, like whether or not they were 3.5 million years ago on the African savanna during the Pliocene, or they were, in the middle of the Ice Age on the top of a mountain in Europe somewhere, their resource base was different. Different places, different times, different technologies to access those resources. So there wasn't one diet in the past, right? There was a lot of different differences depending on the individual context that is based on place, time, environment, and technology. And here we are as modern humans, and we get in the car and drive 5 minutes and end up at a different restaurant or a different grocery store, or a friend's house, or a catered business lunch, or a school cafeteria. That's your resource base from that moment to choose from. And what I think people need to do is understand, okay, you walk in there, give yourself some grace, give yourself a understanding, okay, this is what my resource base is right now. What are my best options? Not like I'm going to eat something here and feel guilty about it for 3 days. It's okay. If this is the area from which I can get all my food right now, what am I going to choose? That's the best possible option. Feel good about it and move on, and hope you're in a better place the next time. So here's some thoughts. So number one, I think that mental thing is very, very important, because if you go into that same setting, eat the same exact food, and walk out of it feeling like you failed, it's going to set you up. That mindset is completely different. And I'm somebody who, if I feel like I failed, if I have that mindset, then I'm done for the day. Minimum done for the day. If I eat an Oreo, I'll eat the entire box of Oreos, right? So that mindset, I think, is very key. So whatever given environment you're in, pretend you're one of your hunter-gatherer ancestors, with that place that you're at is, the only choices that you have for that moment to get food. What's my best choices? The second thing is, really, I think there are very few restaurants in the world. I hope we're one of them, but very few restaurants in the world where you're probably going to be able to make a selection, and if you're very, deliberate about the food that you put into your body, that selection is going to 100% meet all your criteria. So again, it's another place for failure. If you have all that criteria, everything has to be met for you to feel like you've done a good job. So we rank things. Right. What are the most important things for us to look for? And if you go down that list, even if it's mentally going down that list, the selections you're going to make are better, right, than maybe another selection. For me, and this is not just one of these fad things people are talking about now, I think one of the biggest dangers in our modern diet today are industrial nut and seed oils. And I personally have a massive problem with them. If I eat, especially at a restaurant, industrial nut or seed oils that my food's been cooked in, I will not make it home before I have to go to the bathroom. Like, it goes directly through me. So I feel it. I know it. So it's a couple choices there. One is, there's an app called Seed Oil Scout. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they are all, I think they're still just based in the US, but they may have branched out. And the app is growing, and there's more and more resources going into it. But you can typically look up a restaurant that you want to go to through this app, and they'll tell you what kind of fats they cook in, which I think is very valuable. Another great resource is 12 Spoons through the Weston Price Foundation. I'm very proud that we are the first 12 spoon recipient in the entire world from them. So they have a list of criteria, everything from, they don't know, industrial nut or seed oils are used, all the way through, are the grains through a real, sourdough fermentation? Do they offer organ meats? All these sorts of things. Is there bone broth on the menu? There's 12 criteria, and we were the first one to get it in the world. But even the ones that are close, 9, 10, 11 of those spoons is an amazing place to eat. So again, it's a newer resource. So there's a lot more restaurants that are coming and getting filled in into it, but it's at least a great place to start. And if you're in a place like Texas, I was in Austin. There's a Daudua, which is an amazing restaurant in Austin. They're on there. I think they have 10 spoons or something incredible. It's a fantastic place to eat. So that's a great resource. But beyond that, we again, we have our criteria. We don't want any refined or fake sugars. We want to make sure the ingredients are sourced as properly as they can be. And again, that means a lot of different things in a lot of different areas. And depending on your price point, it can mean a lot as well. We want to make sure that as much is made in-house as possible, a whole list of things. And then we go to the best place we can. Unfortunately, again, a family of 5 going into a restaurant that has 12, is using no industrial nut or seed oils, is making everything in house, is sourcing locally, means that you're probably walking out of there for $500. And that's not realistic either in many cases. Me and Christina being out, we're at a conference maybe, and we go out to dinner. That us eating at a place like that for the 2 of us one night, that's a different story. But here are some other things that we do. And a lot of people are probably going to disagree with that, with what I'm going to say. And many people are probably going to be like, yeah, I do that too, but they never admit it in public. But Chipotle and Five Guys are 2 go-tos for us as a family. Really? I know that one of the things that I admire and that I look for are lower carb options. And in both of those places, I can create a meal that satiates me, and it's still a low carb meal. Don't get the bun, and don't get the beans and the rice at Chipotle or whatever it is. And that helps. I did just find out I haven't been to a McDonald's in, I think at this point, 15 years, except for I was on the road. I had to get a cup of coffee, and believe it or not, their coffee isn't that terrible. I got a cup of coffee once in the past 15 years, but I just found out, I don't know if it's true because I haven't tested it, but in a pinch, supposedly every McDonald's around the country, at least, will sell you just their patties for $1. You could literally go to the drive-thru and say, I want 10 patties, and they'll give you 10 patties, and it costs you $10 plus, I guess, tax. But I can't say anything about it. I don't know where that meat was sourced from or those sorts of things. But at least that's an option for somebody if you're looking for something. And again, this is real life. I would love to say all that we do is eat grass-fed, grass-finished beef all the time. It's been sourced this way, killed this way, and traveled 4 miles and cut, in front of me. But in many cases, that's not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it does kind of come back to just being deliberate and intentional and maybe planning ahead, like you talked about. I've been working on an archaeological project for the past couple of months that's been like keeping me traveling about like 2/3 of the time. So, and of course, I'm staying in a very basic hotel room. I'm not staying in one of those extended stay places with like a kitchenette where I can cook a lot of food. But like one of the ways I've been kind of sort of like trying to mitigate that is like I'll bring my air fryer with me, and I'll also bring like a rice cooker with me too. And so, and it's like the most like unsexy food preparing setup ever. Like I'm literally just in my hotel room bathroom, and I prop my air fryer on the counter, and I'll cook up a steak, and I'll cook up some rice, chop up some carrots and maybe a couple of other things, and then like put it in there. And that's it. And I even do that. I even like food prep now. Like I'll put those things in containers, and I'll take them out into the field with me when I go out to do my work each day. But that's, really what it boils down to is just sort of like those preparations. And I guess I'll say setting up your environment to win, like you talked about, having to travel and go to these places, it throws you out of, your environment, your home environment that you could probably set up yourself to win at these, but trying to do it as best you can wherever it is that you have to go to. And so, like I said, I bring these other tools with me. So what's that aspect look like for you? Because again, maybe being put up in hotels, even those types of environments can disrupt like some of the other aspects of kind of this holistic approach to health, things like sleep and recovery. So what does that look like for you as far as setting it up to optimize those things?
Well, let me just say one other thing on the food piece before I get to that. One of the things I always used to do, especially when I was traveling to speak as a professor, because our budgets were very, very low. The college would only, and this isn't the college I was at, this is across the board. There's a certain amount of money that is allotted every day for you for food. It's kind of like, the per diem for you, working a site.
Right.
And it was never enough for me to eat 3 meals a day out somewhere and meet even, whatever my standards might be, especially even at that time. So what I would do is, a buddy of mine, a really good friend of mine, his name is Tim Messer. He's a professor at SUNY Potsdam now, fantastic archaeologist, but he and I would usually travel together to speak at these conferences. And what we would do is we'd check into our hotel and go directly to the nearest Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. And we would get cheese and meat and whatever we were getting. And that would be our breakfast and our lunch every day. And then because we saved money on doing that, we were able to have enough money to go out to dinner at a place that was actually providing the food that would meet our standards. So that certainly helped a lot. But unfortunately, a lot of these, if you're getting in your car and driving, you have the ability to bring a lot of things with you and keep things refrigerated and what have you. But if you're flying, that's obviously not as easy the case. So getting into a Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or something like that to just get a bunch of stuff helps. The other thing that's been very helpful in the past several years is a lot of the research that we're doing is food-based research. We're actually going to a destination to learn from an indigenous or traditional group about the food that they're preparing and eating because it's healthier than the things we have at home. Like, we're learning from them. So going into those settings, by default, I typically have access to just absolutely incredible food, things that, Dr. Weston Price would be, thrilled to have in front of him, the kind of things that he encountered. So that's not an issue. The issue is at the airports, the issues at the hotels in between.
Right.
The issues are where there's these, modern artificial environments that are cut off from anywhere else. And all of a sudden you can't bring water into here, past the TSA checkpoint. And then now you're forced to buy water for $10 or what have you. Luckily, they're starting to put in a lot of airports, places to refill your water bottle and those sorts of things, which is very, very nice. But, going into these airports, I saw a pack of Epic pork rinds. It was like a 4-ounce pack of Epic pork rinds for $24 the other day in an airport. And you know what? I was so hungry, I almost bought it. Like, I literally almost bought it because it was the only thing in there that I felt decent about eating, and I actually went without. The other thing that I think is very important when you're traveling is make sure you're eating to satiation. Like, if you're eating to when you're fully satiated, which is a signal of actually being nourished, then that helps you eat less, later on down the line. But if you just get put something in your mouth as a snack, all of a sudden you're going to be hungrier later. You end up eating more and spending more because your mind is driving your decisions about food. So going to these places and doing research, I actually leave research feeling better in many cases, and more nourished than when I went, but those 2 or 3 days it takes me to get home, in many cases, throws it all to the toilet because I just don't have access to a lot of really good food. Another thing I think people should consider, especially when you're going to places that have real food as options, I mean, real genuine food, is for all the crazy, crazy food that I've eaten around the world, whether we were filming The Great Human Race or whether I'm eating bugs in the middle of Thailand or I'm eating maggot cheese in Sardinia, whatever it is. The only times that I've gotten food poisoning, probably hardcore food poisoning, probably 7 or 8 times in my life, have been from something in the modern industrial food system. Like, I was in Mexico eating cow head tacos. Literally, they pulled the eyeball out of the head and put it on and I'm eating the eyeballs. I'm eating everything else. I'm eating all these crazy things. I got sick. I was eating some very traditional cheeses earlier. I got sick days later because of strawberries that were on a salad in the airport that I ate on the way home. And I mean, I was violently ill from the strawberries from that. So if you have options where you're in a location where you have access to real traditional food, and then typically in a lot of those places, they might have some Americanized version of something. So us Americans can feel a little bit better about, we feel like we want to travel, but we really want to take America with us. I don't understand it. But anyhow, don't get the hamburger. Like, get the real food, because chances are it's healthier, it's more nourishing, and it's more satiating. And I know it was a long-winded answer to the question you didn't even ask me. So we bring a couple things as far as sleeping is concerned. I typically don't have too much trouble sleeping, but it is anytime we travel, it is throwing things off. So um, I am always conscious of whether or not I should be sleep, depending on what direction through the time zones we're going, whether I should or shouldn't be sleeping on a plane, because I'm 51 years old now. I probably should start to plan into these trips padding on either side. Like, okay, I need a day to recover from the travel before we go in and do X, Y, and Z, or I need a day to kind of, you know, whatever before we travel home. But Christine and I, we're not there yet in our heads. It's like, okay, if we have 5 days to do this, we're spending every one of those seconds doing what we went there. Like I could, so we're very deliberate about making sure that when we're traveling, we're doing what we need to do on the plane to make sure that when we hit the ground, we can hit the ground running, and don't have to worry about a day or two of recovery. We are, and I know this isn't doesn't sound like it's a direct answer to that question, but what we eat, how we eat, and when we eat plays a role in how well we sleep. When we're ready to go to sleep, and all of those sorts of things. So keeping control over what you're eating and maintaining that sort of approach that you had at home certainly helps you sleep. Um, we've become sort of addicted to the sound machine at night, to be honest, and we travel with it. So we put on the wave sounds, and that really helps quite a bit as well.
Yeah, my top three for my sleep. Well, I appreciate that you talk about, the food and how you eat and when you eat and everything like that, because that's not, honestly, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting, you were going to dive into some other sleep sciences, like, make the room nice and cool and, try to hang up an extra sheet to blacken out the room from outside ambient light and things like that, which those are all good steps too. But so I know you grew up hunting. Is that something that you're able to do right now? Because one thing about me, since the last time I had you on the podcast, is I've taken up hunting a little bit more, and I did get myself a big boar in northern Texas a couple years ago, and brought home some meat. So, is that something you're still able to do a little bit, or is that kind of taking a back seat with everything else on your schedule?
It's so funny you say that, because this year was the first year since I was 8 years old that I didn't get to go hunting directly. But and I vowed, Christina and I talked about it about a week and a half ago. So real quick, my son Billy, who's now 18, just committed to play soccer at Washington College. So he's going to be here for the next 4 years. And I told her, I said, I have 4 more years of him being within a few miles of here, that there's no way that there's another year going by that it isn't, that's sort of that oxygen mask thing that I let slip this year. I wasn't able to go. We've just been that crazy. However, what I really am proud of is that the hunting that he and I have done together for the past, almost 9 years, no, 10 years of his life, he was able to carry on. He did quite a bit of hunting this year, which is great. So we had a bunch of game in the house anyhow. He did a little bit of deer hunting, but a massive amount of goose and duck hunting. And what we have been able to do, so I would keep that. I really, really enjoy and value I like to call it visceral connection, but the connection that hunting provides us, any of us humans that are engaged in it. But to me, the most important part of the hunt is everything that leads up to the moment that the animal's dead, and everything that happens after the animal's been killed. Taking that animal, making sure that you are doing everything you can to harvest every part of that animal properly, transport it all, and then use it all for food. Incredibly nourishing food. I mean, I think it's the best way to honor the animal. I think it's the most ethical and sustainable and nourishing way to go about it. So what we have is the killing part is to me a necessary part of that system, but it's not something that I find much. I don't find any pleasure in it, but I find a lot of satisfaction and connection through all the other pieces of it. One of the big pushes here at the Food Lab is to share that approach with as many hunters as possible. One of the things we started last year was offering classes to teach people how to, once the animal's killed, how to field dress it with the approach that you're going to use every part of that animal, right? So how to not just cut it open and get the liver and the all, all the guts and everything out so you can bring home all the meat. It's how do you take everything out so you can save the caul fat and the liver and the heart and the kidneys and the spleen and all the other parts of it. And then, after you have that, how do you transform all those parts into real incredible food? So everything but the meat. So well, everything but the typical cuts of meat you would keep. So we offered last year several, and we offered more this year, and they were really well attended classes for we call it how to make the most of your hunt. And we start with whole geese and whole ducks and huge pieces of deer, and we go through how to use all the organ meats and how to render fat and how to cook and how to make bone broth and how to do all those things. And what's really cool is the demographics in that class are not what you would expect. I mean, you would get a bunch of, I don't know, 45-year-old men in there, maybe a couple bring their sons, but it is split almost down the middle, male and female, all different ages. And it's a really rewarding class. So I didn't get to hunt at all directly this year, but through between Billy and those classes, I still feel connected to it this year.
Yeah, I mean, there is no escaping the fact that when you're out hunting, you are seeking to take life at the end of the day. But but that just kind of made me all the more grateful, like when I did get that big giant pig, and of course I didn't take it lightly either. It's like thank you to this powerful creature and this amazing force of nature, for providing sustenance for myself and my loved ones. Because and also I think just goes to just me trying to be a good provider as well. Like I was still living up in Michigan at the time before I moved to Texas, and I had my nephew over who at the time was about 3.5, and for breakfast I actually made him some of my boar sausage. And I scrambled them up a few eggs from our extended family who own a farm just right up the road from us. So it's like I was feeding him meat that I sourced myself and eggs from, family members that we could trust. And I know who were, taking very good care of their chickens and were laying really, really good, healthy eggs. So it's just, I've never felt so good about preparing a meal for someone in my life, including myself, in that moment where I just knew that, I was providing just very good nourishment for one of my loved ones. So I think that's really been the big draws for me getting out hunting, these past couple of years.
And you can't, it's one of what you just described, and I was just sitting here feeling through your words, what you described is one of the most powerful and genuinely loving things you can do for yourself, but also for someone else. And that connection, you cannot get that connection any other way, like except for being a part of the process. And I do think there's a lot of people, and I used to feel this way, like, oh, you need to go hunting every season, every day that you can possibly be out there and do this and this and this and this and be this hardcore, like outdoorsman person in order to have that connection. And look, doing that does provide that connection, but doing that once a year, going hunting, even if all you have access to is once a year, I think is a great reset button. Like it's that powerful reconnection. And even if you don't get anything, that you're getting up in that mindset. One of my favorite things in the world to do is sit in a stand, in the dark and watch and just feel and experience the woods come alive. The sun comes up, you start to hear the birds, you start to hear the squirrels scurrying around, and all of those, you start to hear the dew dropping off the leaves. I mean, it's just powerful. It's something that our ancestors experience every day of their life, and if we're lucky, we get it, once a lifetime for some people. But doing that reconnection, and it doesn't, hunting, fishing, trapping, foraging, all of those things can at some level provide that sort of experience or that sort of reconnection. And it reframes how you look at the world. It reframes how you view your place in the world. It makes what is a seemingly simple breakfast of eggs and sausage be a completely different experience. And that's one of the things that I just want everybody to experience at some level.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Dr. Schindler, I think I'm going to start winding us down here because I know we're kind of crunched for time today. But similar to last time, I want to do a call to action for our listeners because, we got to hear some more stories from you. We got to get some more great insights from you. But as I say, stories, insights, and ideas, inspiration can only take our listeners so far. Action has to follow up on their end to go out there and do amazing things. So with that, what challenge would you issue to our listeners today for them to go out there and start living a more adventurous life?
Well, based upon the conversation we just had, which was fantastic, by the way, and thank you for having me. I based upon the conversation we just had, my call to action this time would be to do something, and it could be a single act, it could be a single day, but purposefully do something to remove at least one link from your food chain and get that much closer to the source of where your food comes from. In an ideal world, it's spring's coming up. It's take a foraging tour with somebody, or go fishing, grab that fishing pole, dust it off, go fishing, remove your links to that extent would be incredible. But even if it's just taking one link away from your food chain, and instead of going to the grocery store, go to the farmer's market, or instead of buying chicken breast, buy the whole chicken, whatever it is, take one link, remove one link from your food chain.
Outstanding. All right. So what I have next for you is my final three. And you answered these questions before, but I'm ashamed to say I didn't go back and look to see what your answers were. So I'm curious if they're going to be different this time
I forget
around.
the question. Okay, hit me.
Okay. And now the first of these three questions is, what is your favorite place that you've been to so far?
Sardinia.
Sardinia?
So it's definitely different from the last time because we just went. Sardinia was amazing.
Okay. All right. And the next question, what is one thing on your bucket list that you have yet to do?
Eat a witchetty grub in Australia.
And where is that? I've never heard of that before.
A witchetty grub is it's a big fat grub. Supposed to be about as big as your thumb is around, and I don't do soft insects well. I do like the crickets and things, the crunchy things really well. So I'm kind of challenging myself here. But this one, supposedly, when it's heated, it's supposed to have the flavor of warm buttered popcorn, but soft. So it's really weird. But it's a very traditional Aborigine food that is going to be a challenge for me.
All right. Well, so far we are 2 for 2 for first answer or original answers to these questions. Yeah, no one said Sardinia yet specifically, and no one has certainly said that as a bucket list item. So, okay, we're 2 for 2.
Okay, what's the third?
The third one is, what is your favorite animal, and have you seen this animal in the wild?
That is a great question. My favorite animal. Did you ask me that one before?
I asked this question to all my guests. So yes, you've been asked this too. But like I said, I can't remember what your answer was. So
my favorite animal right now, it might be reindeer or caribou. And no, I haven't.
Not yet, but all in due time though.
All in due time. We're working on it.
All right. Well, and I will say that is also another original answer to that question. I've gotten a wide array of different answers. I've gotten porcupines, I got roadrunners, I got capybara like answers to the question, but I don't think anyone said reindeer or caribou yet. So there you go.
Huh. All right.
3 for 3 for first answers.
3 originality right here. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Right on. All right. Well, Dr. Schindler, I wanted to thank you very much again for taking the time for joining me on the podcast. Like we talked about, I know you're a busy man and, you're called to do a lot of things right now, but I appreciate you carving out some time in your day to fit me in. So before we, wrap this up here, where can our listeners go to connect with you? And also, where can they pick up a copy of Eat Like a Human? I know that's out there as well. So yeah, awesome. How can we find you?
So you can get the book a lot of different places. A lot of bookstores are carrying it right now in person, so you can go there. I know Barnes and Noble has them across the country. You can certainly get them online at small and large outlets for books. But if you want a sign, we sell it for the same price online. So if you want a signed copy, you can order it directly from our website, and I'll just sign it. And if you want it personalized, let us know what you want on there, and I'll sign it specifically the way you like. There are 2 major websites right now. We will be consolidating, but right now you can find us at 2 different places online. One is eatlikeahuman.com, and that's where you can find a lot of sources for information. So our blog posts are on there, our upcoming classes and descriptions are on there, stuff about the book is on there. That's a great resource. And the modernstoneagekitchen.com is where you can go to find information about our restaurant and order food. We do ship a lot of things that don't need to be refrigerated as well. You can find us on social media at Dr. Bill Schindler, so at Dr. Bill Schindler, at Modern Stone Age Kitchen, and at ES Food Lab, which is our nonprofit.
All right. And I'll be sure to get all those linked up in the show notes for this episode. Or if we have viewers watching us speak on YouTube, it'll be down in the description below so they can go click and find everything. All right. Well, Dr. Schindler, again, I really appreciate you taking the time for joining me today. And also, big thank you to the rest of your family. Like I said, I had a really great experience coming out to the Modern Stone Age Kitchen. You know, like I said, Christina and also your son, Billy, was working there too. Both were very welcoming and accommodating to me. So just appreciate all of you and just, you know, how you all are showing up in the world. So thanks again for your time today.
Well, thank you. I love the work that you do and anything I can do to support you. Thank you so much.
All right. Right on, sir.